In spite of everything that Disney has been accused of in the past 100 years, I do want to wish them a happy centennial. Look, we all have good Disney memories. I like to focus on the positive. Wish. So Wish is Walt Disney Animation Studios' newest film. This is really the one that is meant to commemorate 100 years of Disney. It was originally pitched to be like the origin story of the star that is the wishing star. You know, the song that Disney's always going on about, wishing upon a star, you know, that whole thing. The story of how that star came to be that star, I guess. Not sure who was asking for that, but okay. Wish takes place in the magical kingdom of Rosas, which is ruled by King Magnifico, voiced by Chris Pine. He's also a sorcerer. He has the ability to grant people's wishes. The citizens of Rosas, they give him their wishes, and as our main character Asha, voiced by Ariana DeBose, finds out, this king is not so benevolent. He's actually kind of a dick, so Asha makes a wish upon a star, and it turns out that star's like, I hear ya. I'm gonna help you out on this adventure we're about to go on together. And now we have Wish.
I'm talking. I am talking. Ha! Who knew my voice would be this low?
Now, truth be told, when this movie was first announced and I heard what it was gonna be about, I was like, I like that premise. I like it in accordance with celebrating 100 years of Disney. I'm like, all right, that's thematic. The wishing upon a star thing, that works for Disney's 100-year anniversary. And I do still like the concept. In this movie's execution, though, left some things to be desired. I hate to say it, because if this is the movie that's supposed to be celebrating 100 years of Disney, that's a pretty big deal. It's not a magnum opus. All right, starting off with our characters, our main one, Asha, voiced by Ariana DeBose. I like her in the movie. She's good. I'm not gonna place her up on the pedestal with, like, Elsa and Moana. Maybe Anna, though. She does kind of have that same quirkiness that Anna has, where she's nervous, she stumbles on herself, except Asha's motivation I actually thought really worked. She's a good person, she loves her family, she loves her kingdom. I thought she did a fine job. But Chris Pine as the antagonist, King Magnifico, okay, you know I love Chris Pine. How can you not love Chris Pine? The guy is so charismatic, he's fun to watch, even in animated form, because the guy looks like Chris Pine, let's be honest here. I like that, though. And his charisma comes through even just from his voice. Honestly, he was my favorite part of the whole movie. But one mistake this movie made was marketing this character as the antagonist. When the movie starts off, you're not supposed to know that he's the antagonist because he's not set up that way. He is set up as a good king, and then all of a sudden when he flips into the antagonist, kind of a dick, it does seem kind of sudden. You're like, oh, all right, this kind of came out of nowhere. In terms of the movie's narrative structure, it does seem pretty sudden. Thing is, though, is that you've seen the marketing and they've marketed this character as a villain in the marketing for this movie. And it's kind of hard for my brain to separate the narrative structure of the film from the film I know from the marketing. You know what I'm trying to say? No? Well, that's how it was. Moving on, we have the side characters, the goat Valentino, voiced by Alan Tudyk, and the little star that flies around and causes havoc. And, you know, again, I love Alan Tudyk, but Valentino in this movie, I don't know, he did border on annoying for me. In fact, he did cross that border a few times, I hate to say. None of his jokes really landed with me. He was just there to be the fun comic relief side character. Like, you know how Olaf haters, they talk smack about Olaf, but you know, Olaf's actually a good character in Frozen? You take those complaints that those people have about Olaf and apply them to Valentino, and I will agree with them. I did like Star though, it just ends up being called Star. Star doesn't have a voice, it just kind of zips around and flies and smiles. I liked him though, and I liked the magical power he had, which kind of leads me into the animation. I really like the animation in this movie, because it's not that typical 3D animation that Disney's been doing for the past 15-ish years. I mean, at first it is, but then you notice this kind of hand-drawn-ish quality about it. The backgrounds are all watercolor. I really like that. You can tell that this is Disney's answer to the Spider-Verse animation. Yeah, you know how studios are taking inspiration from Spider-Verse like Paramount did with Ninja Turtles? This is Disney's version of that, and I like how it harkens back to their original, or at least earlier movies. The watercolors like right out of Lilo and Stitch, because Lilo and Stitch had watercolor backgrounds, and I love that. There's some hand-drawn details and effects that look really cool. Overall, I did like the animation and the aesthetic of Wish. But then we get to this movie's story, and of course I'm gonna be vague here, I'm not gonna spoil it, but the story I would say is good for kids, although adults might pick it apart depending on how OCD you are about certain things. Like for me at first, I was fine with it because I was enjoying myself and having fun watching the movie. But my friend who's seen it a few times now, he really proceeded to just shred this movie's plot apart. I was like, yeah, you do have a few good points there. Of course, I'm not letting my friend's opinion influence my own. I do like this movie more than he does. Not by much though. I mean, one thing we both agreed on right away is that, yeah, it's not stuffed to the brim, I would say, but there are enough needless references to other Disney movies in this movie. It was pretty much that needless fan service, member berries, nostalgia bait, whatever you want to call it. There is quite a bit of it in this movie, and you know, a part of it makes sense, this movie being the one that commemorates 100 years of Disney, but I think that's where they screwed up. The story of Wish and Asha and King Magnifico and all that, it should stand on its own as its own movie. It shouldn't rely on Easter eggs to other Disney movies. There are things in this movie that are such, like, they did not have to be in there. References to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland. And it feels like Disney's trying to say this is our origin story for our classic stories and movies. But it's like they forgot that those were not their stories originally to begin with. Those stories I just listed, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, Snow White, those stories existed long before Disney made them into movies. And yeah, it feels like this movie Wish wants us to think otherwise. I just don't get that. And it came from all the unnecessary Disney references in this movie to other Disney movies. A couple of them did work, I will admit, but most of them absolutely did not. Lastly, of course, I gotta talk about the music, because this is a musical. And I will say right off the bat that the songs as songs themselves, they are good, enjoyable songs. But compared to other Disney musical movie soundtracks, I noticed something. And is that the songs in this movie Wish, they don't really have anything in common with each other in terms of musicality, style. Like for example, take the songs in Moana. They all have that Lin-Manuel Miranda meets Pacific Islander music kind of tone throughout consistently in the soundtrack. The songs in Wish, they all sound completely different from each other. One song's a classic Disney-ish song, one's a generic pop song, one has Spanish beats in it, makes the soundtrack as a whole kind of feel like a cluttered mess. And I get that this movie's trying to be inclusive. You know, the Kingdom of Rosas is one where everyone from all over the world can come in and live happy, no matter who you are or where you came from. And so I get that, and of course I'm not against that message, but it just didn't work quite as well in the way they were hoping for, at least not with me, for the soundtrack. That's what I'm really trying to say. So in the end, Wish, I was hoping this would be like one of my favorite movies of the year, because again, I love the concept with the wishing star, and this movie celebrating 100 years of Disney, but unfortunately, the execution had a lot of misfires, and that sucks. This movie is a lot better than Strange World, I will definitely say that, but it is nowhere near as good as Frozen, Big Hero 6, Moana, and Encanto. All in all, there were things I liked, things I didn't like about it. I liked the voice acting, I liked the characters, I liked the animation a lot, and the songs in and of themselves, they're good songs, they're good beats. But the story is inconsistent with its antagonist, and the movie overall is a bit of a mess. For Wish, I will say, wait until this movie's at a matinee price, then go see it. So Wish, have you seen this movie yet? What are your thoughts on it? I'm curious. And what's a movie where you thought the concept was really good, but the execution didn't quite land? I'll ask you that too. So whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Peace!